It's Tuesday, so that means it's time for another top 10 video. This go around, my patrons voted, and they wanted me to cover my top 10 things that I wish I knew, or things you should know before looking into getting Baldur's Gate 3. There's been a lot of hype on Baldur's Gate 3 lately, so it kind of only makes sense to cover what's going on with that. So I don't think I really need to discuss any rules of any kind, and we'll just kind of jump into it. But again, Baldur's Gate 3 is out right now in early access. What are 10 things that you should know before you go out and pick it up? Number 10. Well, it's in early access, so that means there's going to be bugs. And there are bugs. There are issues with sometimes you'll have simple graphical bugs like your body parts clipping through things. You'll start having a conversation, your character's mouth won't move, and then all of a sudden it starts moving and then it stops. You know, their armor will sort of be not fully texturized, and then it'll become texturized throughout the conversation. You'll defeat an enemy and their body will like stretch and wonk out and fly off the screen. So there are bugs associated with it. And it's early access, and not only is it early access, but it's early access at full price. You have to pay $60 to get yourself a copy of Baldur's Gate 3, unless you can find, you may be able to find deals and things, but the standard price is the full-blown $60 price of the game to get an early access of the game as it stands right now. So that's number one. Keep that in mind. It has bugs because it's early access, and to get access to it, it's going to cost you full price. Number 9. So not only is it early access, buggy, and full price, if you're holding out to wait for the final product, the true launch of the game, you're going to be waiting a while. The exact time frame isn't determined. It's a typical video game MMO kind of thing when they don't have it's not an MMO, but like this is a terminology I've seen used a lot in MMOs, is it'll be out when it's ready. And that means we don't really know when it's going to come out, but look, we've done something. Here's the game. So you will be able to, I think from what I heard, since Larian Studios did the Divinity Original Sin games, from what I can gather, that was in early access for about a year before the final product came out. So if it follows the same pathway, Baldur's Gate 3 may be in early access for as long as a year. So that could be sometime in October of 2021, the full version of the game will launch. So if you want to get in, play, mess around with it, see what is happening, learn the story and all that kind of stuff, potentially before it gets spoiled for you or something else, you could do that now. Again, with the knowledge that it will have bugs and it is full price. Or you can wait potentially a year or more for the final version of the game. Number 8. So it's Dungeons & Dragons, it's Baldur's Gate, it's set in the Forgotten Realms, and it's based on 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Sort of. So when I say that it is, if you look at other MMOs and other D&D games throughout history, they're kind of based on the time frame that they're made in, whatever the edition is, whether that's 4th edition with things like Neverwinter, or like 3.5 with the Icewind Dale games and Neverwinter Nights. This is based on 5th edition. You'll see a lot of terminology that makes sense to you. You'll see cleric domains. You'll see eldritch knight fighter. You'll see spells names that make sense to you. And that's because it is based on 5e in that respect. But you'll see that certain things are missing and they're not there. For example, I did that whole video on the Ranger and how that thing was all retooled because it's for a video game. For example, rogues don't have expertise as an option, right? Everyone can disengage and or jump as a bonus action. So the rogues only get dash as a bonus action. So there's different things there. So it is largely, I'd say it's pretty largely accessible. If you know 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, you could go into this game with a pretty understanding. You know what Scorching Ray does. You know what Burning Hands does, what Fog Cloud does. You know that Blessing of the Trickster gives advantage on stealth checks from Trickery Domain Clerics. You know these things. They're in the game. So that's something to consider. That may help if you've never played a Baldur's Gate game before, or a D&D video game, and you're looking to get into one and all you know is 5e. This might be the one for you because you'll at least have that background knowledge going in. Number 7. The early access caps out at level 4. Again, and because it follows 5th edition mechanics like we talked about, that means everything you can expect from a class in 5th edition that goes from level 1 to level 4, you'll have access to. That will be things like getting your subclass between 1st, 2nd, or 3rd level, depending on what class you have. That'll also be getting your first ability score improvement or feat at 4th level. But keep in mind that in the early access, it caps out at 4, meaning you will never get to have extra attack to have 2 attacks on a martial-based class. You won't have extra damage on your cantrips for your spellcasting classes because it caps out at level 4. Also, it seems like early access covers the entire first act of the game. I'm not entirely sure how many acts the game is designed to be. My guess would be 3. That's a pretty standard story arc. But from what I can tell, or it may not be the entirety of Act 1, but all you'll be playing in early access is Act 1. And to that point, this is kind of a bonus one, depending on how efficient you are, how much you want to search, how much you want to read the books and the lore, because there is a lot of that in the game, you could be looking at anywhere between a 20 to 40-hour experience, not including how many times you're going to play a character, decide you don't like that class or that build, swap it out, make a new one, you don't like the way they look, you screwed up a romance option, you screwed up something else, whatever, any of that time. But actual gameplay, when you get into a class and you roll through it, it looks like you'll be in a pretty good spot to get yours somewhere in the 20 to 40-hour range of time frame, which is not bad. I mean, that's a standard good story game. You could get 20 to 40 hours out of it for $60. So, if you're looking at bang for your buck, I mean, that may involve sometimes of you having to deal with bugs and load out and load back in, but that's a decent chunk of game, and that's only going to be comprised of stuff from the first act. And there's clearly a lot more to go down the road. Number 6. Not all the races or classes are available in the game at launch. We have a selection of races and a selection of classes, but if you're looking to play something like a Bard, Paladin, or Druid, you're going to be out of luck. They're not currently available in the game. So why don't I go ahead and pull this up right here, and I can show you what your options are. For classes, you currently have Cleric, Fighter, Ranger, Rogue, Warlock, and Wizard. And for races, you have Elf, Tiefling, Drow, Human, Githyanki, Dwarf, Half-Elf, and Halfling. You'll notice some things even from the player's handbook that are missing here, like Gnome and Dragonborn. Also, with the classes, you can see that there are some subclasses. For instance, the Cleric has Life Domain, Light Domain, and Trickery Domain. You're missing very big staples in there like War Domain, Tempest Domain, Nature and Knowledge Domain. Same thing with Fighter. It doesn't give you an option at level 1, but you only have the Battle Master and the Eldritch Knight. It's funnily enough that Champion is probably the simplest one to implement, and that one isn't in the game. Ranger only has your player's handbook options. Wizard, you only have Evocation and Abjuration. Warlock only has the Fiend and the Great Old One, no Archfey, and then Rogue is missing the Assassin. So not every single option that you have is in the game. However, the plan is, when it is fully launched, whenever that is to have every class and every subclass that was in the player's handbook in the game and available to you. Obviously, with a couple of exceptions, like, right, we have Githyanki as a starting race, which is not something you would normally have. Who knows if they'll go above and beyond by the time the game officially launches. And if you're in the early access, you might get lucky and maybe, a hot fix or a patch or something 3 months down the line might say add Bard or Barbarian or something like that. So you might get a chance to play additional options as time goes on. Number 5. It has multiplayer. I haven't actually messed around with the multiplayer too much. I've just been enjoying myself in the single-player experience, but multiplayer is an option for you. It looks like when I go into the game, and I'll show you guys over here, there is basically you can set up a lobby. You could do, you're probably not doing any LAN parties right now, but I guess you could. And then it looks like you can go ahead and create a lobby, and it looks like you can choose some different adventure options here. It's just the one. Any map, and then it has party level, which goes up to 25 plus. I don't think that means individual characters can go to 25 plus. It probably just means the combined aggregate level of the party. But it looks like I can go to create, and I can just go right here, and I can make myself a lobby that I can then invite people to, and probably, yeah, see, here's me. I have open slots. I can name the adventure and what the number of slots are, and then I can just copy this server ID and shoot this to whoever I want, I guess, and then just launch it, and we're good to go. So multiplayer is an option, and that could be a really fun way to also experience it. You could possibly do an all cleric party, an all warlock party, whatever. Could be really fun. Number 4. As it stands now, not all classes are created equal. Some of these classes are significantly better or worse in some aspects than others. For example, if I were to go over to Baldur's Gate and pull it up right now and show it to you, there's a couple of things that you might find interesting. So if I were to say, look at the Warlock, you see the Fiend Warlock? My head's kind of in the way here, so why don't I go ahead and scooch myself over a little bit, and then I can show you. So you can see what you get for being a Fiend Warlock. You'll have access to 2 spells that you wouldn't normally have access to, which would be Burning Hands, and where is it? Is it Hellish Rebuke? I forget. Well, anyway, you have access to Burning Hands, which is a spell that you get for being a, it might be Command, actually? Yeah, for being a Fiend Warlock. It also shows you here that you get Dark One's Blessing, which, as we know from 5th edition, if my head wasn't in the way, we'll move me over here now, that when you kill a creature and drop it to 0 hit points, you get temporary hit points equal to your Charisma modifier plus your level, which is really nice. And that's something that works. It functions exactly the same as it does in 5e. Well, if we go up here and change ourselves to the Great Old One Warlock, you'll notice that we don't get any other abilities. See how we had Dark One's Blessing there under subclass features? Well, Great Old One Warlock doesn't get anything like that. They just don't have anything at all. You do get access to the 2 expanded spell slots, or spell list rather, which is Dissonant Whispers and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Currently, as far as I can tell, I think the only way to get access to these 2 spells in the game right now is by being a Great Old One Warlock, but you don't get any other subclass features for that. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I can think of. So the Cleric, the Life Cleric here gets Disciple of Life, which is the extra healing. The Light Cleric gets Warding Flare. So the Cleric, for example, I think gets all of their abilities, right? Blessing of the Trickster. So he doesn't list Blessing of the Trickster here, but it's down here under Actions. So this one happens to give you all of the options that you would normally get. But for example, Fighter, speaking about classes not being created equal, if you're a Fighter, at the start, all you have is 1 attack, and eventually you'll get Action Surge, and then eventually some other things. But you are still going to be limited to only 1 singular attack, whereas some other folks may have other access to other things with dual wielding. For example, a Thief Rogue gets an extra bonus action on a turn, so you could stab somebody with an action, and then 2 bonus action stabs, which gives you the most attacks really in the game over anybody, even even over a fighter with Action Surge. So classes aren't created equal. Also, with scrolls, wizards can scribe every scroll into their spellbook. So if you find a scroll of Cure Wounds or a scroll of Healing Word, and you give it to the wizard and let him scribe it into their spellbook, you now have a healing wizard. So wizards can learn any spells from scrolls in the game. Another thing that means that, once again, not all classes are created equal. So I highly recommend, if you do decide to pick this up and play around in early access, try out all the classes and see which one works best for you. Number 3. There are options that you have in this game that you don't typically have, not everyone has access to in 5th edition, that are exceptionally useful and things you should definitely look at. So I'm not going to go into it too much, but this little bar over here is going to show other actions, right? So this is throwing something. It says it's an action, dash as an action, knock someone unconscious, or help. But then you can also see as bonus action is jump, which also counts as a disengage. Dip, which is allowing you to actually dip your item into not only poison, like if you happen to have poison, You can double click it to apply it, but you could dip your sword into flames to set your sword on fire, maybe into like some sort of poison field or grease on the ground or something. Shove and then hide. Obviously, when in doubt, if you think you're going to be scared of something, use the hide action and move around like that. But the one that I want to bring up to your attention here is the shove action, because as we can see, I'm on a second story floor here with this goblin, and shove is one of the, you can see the second house here, a little bug here, the secondary floor disappeared. But if I go ahead and shove this goblin, and I have a 45% chance of success, but you know what, this will also be a little freebie here, is use your party's skills. So now if I switch over to my fighter, who's got strength, she has an 80% chance of shoving him out the window. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk her over here, and we're gonna shove this goblin out a window, and that might kill him because he'll take fall damage. So let's just go ahead and give that a shot. There he goes, and now he's out the window. Now everybody wants to fight me, because we just initiated combat in a goblin village where we were pretty much respected at the moment. But you get my point. Shoving and using terrain, high ground, set it like dropping grease on the ground to then set it on fire later. There's a lot of interesting things and interactions you can do if you take the time to do so. Number 2. Contrary to what I thought, you can actually gain access to spells while in dialogue trees, which is useful if you want to do something like friends or guidance or something like that to help you in a check you might not be competent in yourself normally. Now, I was unaware of this till someone brought it up and actually showed me. So I'm engaging with an NPC right now. You can see my options are, I have, for, go my tiefling routes, my character's a tiefling, do an intimidation or a persuasion check. Now, if I click on character select, I can choose my cleric here, and I'm outside of the dialogue, see that? So I can go ahead and choose guidance as a spell. I can go ahead and put guidance on myself. Now if I go back into the dialogue, should have some benefits on the roll here. So you can see I have an intimidation check of +3, and I have persuasion check of +5. You can see where those numbers come from. So let's go ahead and click persuasion. And see where that says down at the bottom, 2 roll bonus? That means I rolled a 2 on my D4 from guidance. Hence my target number is now only 2. So I managed to succeed, and I'll get the additional dialogue. So this can work depending on who's doing it. The only way I haven't been able to figure out how to do it is my character happens to have the friends spell, so I didn't cast friends on them before the conversation started. I don't think there's a way to do it in conversation. You can have other people impact it, like the way I just showed you. But again, if you're not familiar with that, it's very easy to overlook it. Number 1. Before I give you my final one, I wanted to share with you, I put a social media tweet out and post about it on a bunch of different social media, but Larian Studios actually developed complete interactivity with Twitch built in to this. So I wanted to show this to you. So if I go back into the game here, see this little option, right, this little thing right here? The only way that shows up is if you go into Twitch and download the Baldur's Gate 3 extension, and then link your Twitch account or do something to basically link your Baldur's Gate account to your Twitch account, and that will give this. So if I go ahead and click this, it would then prompt on screen in Twitch the viewers which one they would want to vote for. And they'll give them 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see there's a little timer here that's ticking down. And basically, if you're watching and streaming this live on, on Twitch, and I've done this before, we tried it out. It's actually really fun. Your viewers can go ahead and come in here and vote for which option they think you should choose. And I actually ended up doing that exclusively, pretty much, when I streamed it. I only chose what the viewers told me to pick, and that actually led to a bunch of different dialogue options that I had not seen before. So I thought that was really cool. So that's my little bonus tip for you. But lastly, save early and save often. This does not act like most modern video games where you can rely heavily on autosave to protect you. you could do a significant string of the game, and if you don't happen to just load into a new area or something specific, it will not autosave, and you will find yourself doing the entire thing all over again. This happened to me countless times. It just mind-boggling the amount of stuff I would do. And because things like loot and rolls and things are random drops, like you might have found like a really awesome, like +1 longbow, let's say, somewhere, and then you didn't save, and then you restarted, and now it's a +1 short sword, which may be useful to you, but it's not what you wanted from before. So you get my point. Things kind of change. So save early, save often. F5 is quick save. That's the best I can tell you. And yeah, this was kind of fun. I don't really, I'm a huge video game fan and gamer in general, but I don't really talk about video games on the channel because Dungeons and Dragons is kind of what you guys are all here for. And I think it's okay to stream video games occasionally, but I don't want to make like full-blown video game content. I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. But if you look back through some of the old legacy top 10 stuff, I had done some top 10s back in the day covering video game related things. But anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Again, I was kind of a little shocked to see that my patrons voted for this over the other options we had. It was pretty close. It was pretty much neck and neck with top 10 magical secrets for the Bard, with spells to choose, which will likely end up being next Tuesday's video. But yeah, this is fun. And that's just also a reminder that I do have patrons over on Patreon, and a big shout out and thank you to them. But every week or every 2 weeks, they get to vote on what becomes the top 10 video. Also at higher tiers, they get to just suggest video topics that I will go make. They also get access to any kind of playtest material for classes and things that I'm working on. For example, my Ranger Fix and my Necromancer level 1 to 20 class, they have access to both of those right now for playtesting to see how things go before I officially launch them on the DMs Guild, and then also launch them in videos to make them available to all of you. So anyway, again, thank you to them. Thank you to all of you for watching. And just as a reminder, the giveaway where you can win fun things like the limited edition copy of Icewind Dale and the Icewind Dale dice and all that is going for another 4 days before another set of giveaways are going to go live. So be sure to check the link in the description for that. And I will see you all next time.